if Kendrick is a blood, then they couldn't even call him K-Dot. They'd have to call him B-Dot.
So, like, what's the rule with, like, the blood? Like, what do you have to put in front of? C words or K?
I think it's any hard C. Like, whether it's a K or not. I'm really excited for Tyler, the Creator's new album, Sum 41, Flower Boy.
I think we're just going to open on that. I think it's good open as we're ever going to get. Welcome, everyone, to the Anthony and Todd Show. I'm your host, Voncent.
Benny Boncent.
And I'm joined today by my co-host, who you may know as
Pharrell Williams.
Trevor, a.k.a. Secret Agent Cody Banks 3, a.k.a. Let's See How You Do in the Pit, a.k.a. the guy with the additional vocal credit on EXO Tour La Life. There's 2 L's there.
There is, and there's also a 3.
A.k.a. the guy who helped Hans Zimmer get his head out of the tuba, a.k.a. Shaft Macaroni and Cheese. I'm pretty proud of that one.
I'm glad.
A.k.a. your boy Trev, a.k.a. my coach Trevor. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
I feel so bad to be a blood. You just have to change up your entire grammar.
It sups, man.
They should teach blood in school.
As a foreign language credit.
Just like they did Ibonics back in the day.
Hooked on phonics.
So welcome to the welcome to the Anthony and Todd Show, episode 5. I'm sorry, it's been taking a while to get these episodes out. We've been busy. Also, Stacy
Died.
So
On
he was
his
supposed to
way
be our
here.
guest star today, but he died. So rip him. Also, I've been trying to edit stuff together, so that's why it's taking a while. But today, it's a pretty good day. We're actually talking about Jay-Z's 44.4. We're talking about
444.
Did you know Jay-Z's 444 isn't actually 4 minutes and 44 seconds long? I went into it and I was completely blown away that it wasn't 4 minutes long.
It's a lot longer than that. There's a lot more tracks.
You've lied to me. I don't like it. And then we're also talking about Kendrick Lamar's Damn. It was both on our list last week of greatest albums of the year so far. And we're also going to be talking about some Tyler Creator singles because I like Tyler Creator and I'm excited to hear his music and now it's actually like noteworthy. So I'm excited. Okay. Today's episode 5, is entitled Damn. I didn't know I was listening to this album on shuffle. We'll get into that later. But we're going to start off with some Jay-Z 44.4.
444.
44.4. 40.
He woke up at 44 o'clock in the morning.
With 2 40s in his hands, duct tape to his hands.
And he may ask himself, how did he get here?
So Jay-Z's 444, 44, 40. No, it's actually Bore.
444.
I think that's the
Bazy.
Bazy is Jay-Z's latest album. Came out a couple weeks ago as a title exclusive. Then like a week later,
It's not a title exclusive.
which is surprising that he made it title exclusive for short.
Yeah.
It was only a week. Unlike the Kanye album, which was title exclusive for like a month and a half, I think. Something like
But
that.
we still got our hands on it anyway.
Yeah, because we boycotted the album. No, we just got it from Stacey. We got a press copy. And Jay-Z's always been one of those artists that I feel has kind of been overrated. And I hate saying that, but and I know a lot of people are just going to give me crap for that. But it's just like I listen to his music, and it's kind of like what I think of like a generic rapper. Just because not like Jay-Z's like... He is a really good lyricist and stuff like that, but he's not really a good artist, I would say. He doesn't really do anything that like makes me surprised. Like, going to a Jay-Z album what to expect. And I don't think I really fully enjoyed a Jay-Z project all the way through. And Jay-Z's just I've never been a huge Jay-Z fan. And that's my personal opinion. I know a lot of people love Jay-Z. Some people hate Jay-Z. I think, I don't know. He there's talent there to be had, but I don't think Jay-Z uses it to his fullest potential at times. And he doesn't really like mix up his style. Like artists like Kanye West, over his career, he's transitioned to a lot of different styles, whether it be like the industrial like music on Yeezus, or kind of like the sloppy, kind of fake album that is supposed to be Cuba's Life of Pablo, or the very minimalist pop 808s. So like over his career, he's transitioned to a lot of different sounds, and he's experimented with a lot of different things, unlike Jay-Z, who's just kind of produced the same album a lot of times over again. And Jay-Z's last album, Magna Carta, Holy Grail, I wasn't too big of a fan of. It had some nice moments on it. I remember Tom Ford being a really, really nice moment on it. I remember Holy Grail being kind of a unique moment where like Justin Timberlake and Jay-Z were kind of going at it, and I thought that was kind of cool. But it didn't really like shock me. I remember listening to it and just not being a huge fan of it. There's some good moments. I think the Frank Ocean collab on that album was also pretty good, but I wasn't super hyped for like another Jay-Z album. And here we are, a couple years later. Jay-Z releases Bore. And it's right after, a year after, I think, to the, like, similar to the date.
Almost. It was close.
To his wife Beyonce's Lemonade, which kinda was an album about Jay-Z cheating. Which I didn't believe at first that Jay-Z cheated. Not because I think Jay-Z's this holy figure and he wouldn't do that. I just feel like it was kind of just a written up story so Beyonce would have something to work with. Or
I didn't think you'd cheat on her because she's Beyonce.
Yeah, you think that.
I mean, like...
you think that you would be like, I have Beyonce, I'm not going to fuck this up.
No.
But yeah, I think it was probably... I thought at first it was probably like a narrative Beyonce was working with just so she had like something to work with on the album. And I didn't really believe at first. As I got into 444, I do think Jay-Z cheated. I don't believe it was just all work anymore. It could be. It could be, but I feel like there's evidence now.
I've been sold.
I've been kind of sold that he cheated. But one thing that this album doesn't give me, it doesn't give me two things, which I feel like are kind of crucial that we don't get. First, he doesn't say how much he cheated, or like he doesn't need to list off the names, but like who are they? Not as like a name, but like as a person, or are they just like a street prostitute, or are they just?
There's no relation to the person that he cheated on her with. Yeah, like you don't know. I mean, obviously he's not going to go out and name names. I don't want him to go out and name names because really that would hurt the person that he cheated on Beyonce with, and like that was wrong for her to take place in too. But Jay-Z ultimately is making the album. He had the album made about him. Lemonade was made about him, and I think that's like important to the narratives to know what his relationship was to this woman, and he doesn't really give that in the album. You don't know if it's like, I mean, if you look deeper into the story, you know who it is, or you have ideas of who it is, like a makeup artist or something like that he worked with. But like in the album, that kind of needs to be like explicitly stated.
Like, and also that how many did he cheat with? Just like one woman, or did he have multiple affairs? Mm-hmm. I think that would kind of be nothing. Some clarification, not full clarification, but just enough so we'd like know the scenario more, so it doesn't feel like it could potentially be fake. I think that would kind of be nice. But this new Jay-Z album, I was kind of going into it. I just kind of wanted it to be bad. I really wanted it to be bad. But it's not a bad album. It's not a good album. It is a good album. It's not a great album. It's a solid performance from Jay-Z. He tries some new things. But I don't think he does enough. And I think this album is kind of short too. And it leaves a little bit to be desired. Mm-hmm. It's only 36 minutes long, which is surprisingly short for some albums. Good albums can be 36 minutes long, but this one I felt like there's some filler tracks that I really didn't care for, and I felt like it was.
I also feel like there shouldn't be filler tracks.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so much more of a narrative to be told here, and he chose to use filler tracks. I think it says a little something for his apology in the first place.
And going into this album, I thought I wasn't gonna like it, and then I heard the track "Story of OJ," which was really surprising because it had a great instrumental made by him and M.A.A.D. It talked about like racial issues, and it also talked about like Jay-Z's personal issues and stuff like that, and I thought it was really cool. Going into this album, I kind of like went into it with an open mind, and I was excited to see what it was gonna be because "Story of OJ" was such a good track. And started off, "Kill Jay-Z." Kill Jay-Z is supposed to be a killing of Jay-Z's ego, but I think Jay-Z doesn't go past surface level at all. The track feels like Jay-Z's trying to diss himself, but he's not doing a good job of it because he's not digging deep. He doesn't like give us any information that cannot be found online. It's all surface level information, and there's nothing really to it. He just states a bunch of facts that we already kind of know, but there's like nothing new to him. And then there's a part like in like the first verse where he disses Kanye, and this is kind of where I get like a little bit angry in a sense, because he does a rip on Kanye about the 20 minutes he did on stage at like one festival last year. But like, here's what I don't understand about him and Kanye's beef. Kanye, who is one of Jay-Z's biggest supporters, made Jay-Z a lot of money last year when The Life of Pablo was on Tidal exclusively for a month and a half. Jay-Z made a lot of money from that. And then he just goes and disses Kanye like this. Which, I don't know, we still don't know what the issue between him and Kanye is. I don't think we ever will. But it seems like Kanye wanted to talk to Jay-Z, and just Jay-Z never responded back.
Yeah.
And that makes Jay-Z just seem like a bit of a dick. He comes through on this album making it seem like Tidal is this such big deal and that he's this great savior by having Tidal. But like, one of the artists that was trying to support Jay-Z through Tidal, Kanye, wanted to get some answers from him and just never did. And then Jay-Z just disses him like twice on this album. And
yeah, there's no real reason why. That's like you have a couple friends left after cheating on one of the most sought-after women in the world, and you diss him on your comeback album or your apology album, whatever you want to call it.
It's just it just makes Jay-Z seem like a dick, and it doesn't kill Jay-Z's ego. It just
fuels the fire, really.
Jay-Z doesn't really seem like apologetic about the thing, because Kanye was going through like paranoia and stuff like that. Like around the time he was like talking trash at his tours and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I think Jay-Z would be kind soul and be like, oh yeah, you just had some mental issues. It's fine. We all have problems. You think he would be a nice guy. He just doesn't. It was like a sour taste in my mouth. The track wise, instrumentally, M.A.A.D does a good job with producing. I think it's still a solid track. Jay-Z's flow is pretty good, but he doesn't go deep. And that's my one problem with the track. After that, Story of OJ, which I thought was a really good track. Talked about it a little bit earlier. What did you think of the track?
I really liked the Story of OJ. Maybe different reasons than you did, but I really enjoyed the music video to begin with. Like, the music video just tied everything together so well in that old, like, Song of the South, style animation. I really liked the instrumental. I thought that was really, like, a powerful kind of thing, using, like, an old, like, African-American kind of spiritual song. But I think, like, one of my favorite things about the Story of OJ is the blank space in the song. And I think, like, a lot of artists are afraid of having just empty space, you know, where you're not saying something. You always have to have a hype man to fill in that empty space. They're like almost afraid of it. Like, if an audience sits too long without anything to hear, anything to listen to or take in, they're going to get bored with you. And I think that the Story of OJ had a lot of empty space, and he used it to its fullest potential. Drop a couple of bars on his audience, and they had time to think about it in between when he was actually saying things, you know? I think that he had a lot of like very powerful things to say in the story of OJ, as far as race relations went, and he gave his listeners time to just soak it in between his lines.
Going back to the music video, I think the music video for the story of OJ is probably one of the best of the year. 2017 hasn't been the best year for music videos. I was like scrolling back to see like maybe if I wanted to make like a top 10 music videos of the year so far list. But I went through, and besides Brockhampton's videos, there hasn't been a lot of like decent music videos or anything that was really exciting as there was last year. Last year there was a lot of great music videos.
There really were.
There were like Frank Ocean had an amazing video. Radio had a couple of great videos. Danny Brown had a couple good videos. But this year there hasn't been a lot of great ones, and this has been probably the best of the year so far. The story of OJ. I love the animation style. I love how he takes like hateful imagery and he makes it his own. I think that's kind of cool. After that, we got Smile. Smile is weird because, like, Jay-Z, I think, had some good ideas going into it, but they're not executed well.
He's all over the place, honestly.
Because, like, he starts off, he's doing his normal braggadocio stuff, and then he talks about his mom coming out of the closet, which I thought was a really, really cool thing. But then he just goes on and talks about, like, does some more braggadocio, talks about Tidal, and then, which makes him seem like a god, a sense. He seems like he's trying to be this huge savior. And Tidal is probably the worst executed streaming service out. It's probably one of the worst executed things in general, just because Tidal, it's all about supposed to be helping out smaller artists. But all the people at the press conference were larger artists. So people like Coldplay, Daft Punk.
Biggie Smalls, Rick Ross.
Yeah, I can't forget about those. But like Kanye was there. Like none of these were like indie artists. Like there wasn't Chance or anything like that. Or like people that would actually maybe benefit from this. And there was no one there that was independent.
Mm-hmm. Everybody was signed already.
And Tidal could be a good thing because I like the idea of Tidal paying more, but Tidal is just a mess. And for him to make it seem like he's this giant savior and that everyone's wrong for taking their music off Tidal is just stupid. He keeps on like swerving around a point if he has one, and he loses it. Production-wise, again, this track's still pretty good. First three tracks are pretty solid production-wise, and I really enjoy them. Going on to the next track, Caught Their Eyes. I dislike this track.
May I add in something for Cut Their Eyes?
Yeah.
Randy Newman worked on it. The genius behind You've Got a Friend in Me from Toy Story.
Did he actually work on it, or did they sample him? I'm assuming they sampled him. The same way Stevie Wonder was on Smile.
They sampled him.
I don't like this track because Frank Ocean is not used to his full potential. And Frank Ocean is one of those artists where if he's featured on your track, you better use him to his full potential, because
if you don't, it's just going to be disappointing because everybody knows he's got more than what you're showing.
No, if you don't, he has to go back to the Bermuda Triangle.
He won't make music for another 8 years.
This track is like one of the better ones when, like, because Jay-Z's actually talking about stuff coherently. He's not like swerving around a point. Like the second half of the song, he talks about Prince, which I think is really, it's like, it shows that Jay-Z has morals, and it doesn't make him seem like a dick like some of the other moments in this album do. He seems like this is what Prince wanted, and it's a shame Prince didn't get what he wanted, and his family, or so-called family, wants to just make a cheap buck, and it's a shame. But Frank Ocean's just performance on this, I found, was really lackluster. Literally just take Damian Marley from one of the later tracks and just have him do Frank Ocean's part, and it would probably sound a lot better. Because Frank Ocean really can't. I think they're trying to go for like a little bit of a reggae vibe, maybe.
Yeah,
or
definitely.
Like an island vibe.
But Frank Ocean doesn't always fit that vibe.
It reminds me somewhat of Jay-Z on Biking, Because Jay-Z, for a while on that Frank Ocean track Biking, it seemed like he was kind of shoehorned in, but at least Jay-Z had a strong enough performance that if it was
like, okay.
It was okay. And like the rest of the track was so good that it was kind of hardly noticeable. This, it just, Frank feels shoehorned in. And there's been way more better collaborations between Jay-Z and Frank.
Yeah.
After that, we had 444. A track I didn't really like at first, but I think it's grown on me. I feel like at first Jay-Z kind of went surface level again, but I don't think he really did. I think he showed enough emotion that he really needed to on this track.
Mm-hmm.
The Hannah Williams sample about infidelity and like not being enough, I thought was kind of nice. Really fit the track well.
In a way, I feel like this should have been the opening track.
Yeah,
to fit the name of the album, but also to address the themes that he would be addressing later. I think it would clear up a lot of things. Kill Jay-Z, I don't think that might be a good like second track to let everybody know, like, hey, I'm trying to get rid of my ego. Not doing a very good job of it, but like, you know, it would at least show that he would be making an attempt. But I think 444 would have been a better opening track to the album.
Kill Jay-Z, I understand why you put Kill Jay-Z there. It's the old saying of Jay-Z. Jay-Z with just like the space instead of the, because he changed his name back in like, what was it, 2010, and then he put like, it's fixed now to where it was before with Jay-Z and then dash J-Z. I don't know why he changed it.
I have no idea.
I understand why he put that first. So it's he's trying to show like he killed off his ego. At least that I can understand that. I feel like 444 may have been a better like second track. It would have been nice to have 444 as like the fourth track before you get into Frank Ocean.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like Jay-Z, he discusses his infidelity. He could go a little deeper, but I don't think he really needed to on this track. I think he did a good job of like explaining everything. After that, Family Feud featuring Beyonce
and Steve Harvey.
It's just, you go into this track expecting it's just going to be a straight up fight between Jay-Z and Beyonce. And it's not. It's almost like some fake false advertisement, because like when I was going over the track list, I was like, oh, that track's going to be good because Beyonce's going to say some shit about Jay-Z. And Beyonce's going to, or like Jay-Z's going to have like rebuttal. It's going to be like some weird debate. And it's going to be cool. But it isn't. It's Beyonce pretty much sampled into the beat. And then Jay-Z talking about the rap community, which his main point, which he has hard grasping points at sometimes, Jay-Z. He just can't grasp it. He has to do some like stupid line about like a car or some shit. Jay-Z, he's good lyricist wise. He's great. He can rhyme well. He can keep pace well, but he can't keep a solid thought for a fucking second.
No. He's too all over the place.
And there's only like rare moments where that works. Like on Story of Ojo, it works pretty well where he's talking about like...
It's a broad thought.
Yeah.
If he gets a broad subject, that works well for him. But if he's trying to do one specific thing, if you're trying to talk about racial inequality or race relations in the U.S., that is a broader thought, you know? There are a lot of things that could go into it. You could talk about police brutality. You could talk about black men in the workforce. You could talk about all that kind of thing. But if you're talking about one specific thing, such as police brutality, it's not really good for his style because he can't keep a coherent thought.
And this track, he talks on Family Feud, he talks about
Steve Harvey.
Yes, Steve Harvey. Definitely. Dude, that'd be great. I want to hear that
his
track.
Mustache.
And his mustache. But, like, Jay-Z can't keep a coherent thought for, like, a second on this track. Like, on this track, his main point that I was able to grasp out of, like, all the stuff he was, like, throwing at the wall was that young rappers don't respect old rappers. My point about this is all the young rappers that you hear that are kind of being disrespectful. I have two sides to it. One, usually the rappers that like don't respect their elders as much are usually the ones that are really well liked to begin with. Like Lil Uzi Vert. He's Lil Uzi Vert, Lil Yachty.
Lil Yachty even made comment on this he was on like a TV show or something, right? And they were talking about like, oh, young rappers these days don't respect their elders, they don't respect those who came before them. And Yachty's like, just let the kids have fun, let them make music, you know? And I like to take that kind of stance because honestly, what's it matter if you listen to them or not? Like, I think there's a lot to be learned from listening to people before you, but also like music isn't what it used to be. Music won't be what it is now in the future.
And that's the other side I was going to talk about. I think hip hop, it's perfectly fine for younger artists not to listen to older artists. I think because hip hop it's kind of like punk in a way. It's kind of like rebellion, and it could be whatever you want it to be. And I feel like it's perfectly fine for like Lil Yachty come out and say Biggie Smalls is overrated. I think that's perfectly fine because hip hop is rebellion. It's not fitting with the status quo. It's making it whatever you want to make it. And I don't think Jay-Z explains himself well to make like support his point at whatsoever. And I think Lil Yachty does something better than Jay-Z. Is he's able to
I would dare say Lil Yachty does a couple things better than Jay-Z.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But yeah, it's this track. It would be nice to hear Jay-Z's perspective on it, but he doesn't do a good job of it. He doesn't. It's like a high school speech class where like some kids like barely getting by. Like he wrote the speech like 10 minutes before, and he's just spouting out facts. Jay-Z's like just kind of spouting out just random stuff and seeing what like fits. It's almost like this was more like a freestyle than like anything.
Well, another point that I don't like on the album is that like he's talking about how younger rappers need to listen to their elder rappers, but it's also, I don't like the fact that I know he considers himself to be somebody to be listened to. He's considering himself to be one of the greats that everybody should listen to, and I don't really like that, especially on an album like this. I don't think it's necessary, you know?
And then go on to probably the worst track on the album, Bam, featuring Damian Marley.
Woo!
I don't like reggae. I really don't.
How about Ziggy?
Ziggy made the Arthur theme song, so he's okay in my book.
He did.
But like reggae's just not my jam, unless it's like super like it's like edited in a unique way or they do something special with it. Damian Marley, every time I hear him on a track, I just don't care. This track isn't for me. There's nothing to grasp on this track. The way Caught Their Eyes had something nice to say about Prince, even though like the instrumentation was kind of bad and Frank Ocean's vocal performance was kind of bad. There was something for me to grasp. On Bam, there's nothing for me to grasp. I'm just reaching my hand out and I'm grabbing nothing because there's just nothing there. It's all just like surface level, and that's a real problem Jay-Z keeps on having on this album. I don't like. There's nothing really else to say about it. Damian Marley, for a reggae performance, I think he does a decent job, but like it's not my jam. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's really anything there. Jay-Z just does his normal braggadocios thing. There's nothing really else to talk about it unless you have something really important to say, Trevor.
I don't.
After that, Moonlight, it's cool that he's like making a reference to La La Land and kind of the chorus. I think that's kind of cool because it's like kind of shows La La Land. I wish this track was kind of about racial issues because I feel like that hook would fit better.
Yeah.
Not to say like Jay-Z needed to make that, but I feel like that hook.
I think he covered a lot of his stuff in the story of OJ.
This track, it kind of goes over cliches in rap. I think it's funny that Jay-Z's covering cliches in rap.
Because he's the embodiment of all cliches in rap.
Yeah, like, he's still doing braggadocio, which Kanye does braggadocio, which he did.
Not even as much, though. I mean, you see Yeezus evolved from his previous albums, you know? And you see how The Life of Pablo evolved from Yeezus. There's definitely, like, a fine line that describes, hey, this is where Kanye stopped talking about himself and started talking about like more important things. And let's be honest, like it's part of his personality. It's part of I think every rapper's personality to rap about themselves at least some of the time and brag about their accomplishments. But I think Jay-Z doing that still in the present day just shows that he's almost like afraid of being taken over by these younger artists and can't adapt to the new hip hop scene. And he sees people like Kanye being able to do that, and like Kanye's been around for a little while too, but like he sees older artists, older being in air quotations, he sees older artists like Kanye that he rapped alongside with, like maybe at the peak of his career, and he sees that they're adapting well to the new scene. And he sees like a Tribe Called Quest, he sees De La Soul, and these older groups that are adapting well to hip hop's new like forefront. They're still in the forefront and they're still considered legends, but I think Jay-Z doing the same thing over and over, that's the definition of insanity. He's not getting any new results that he didn't get.
And with like Kanye, when he's braggadocious though, there's always like a braggadocious statement and then some funny punchline or something, and
Yeah.
you know it's Kanye.
There's always something like completely ridiculous that like you think about for months afterward. Like that was just so stupid. It's so Kanye-esque, but like you don't even care. It's just part of his personality.
Or like other artists like Tyler Creator use kind of braggadocious statements at time, but you also know there's like depth to Tyler. You know that he's just saying this stuff and he doesn't really like mean it. Or artists like Lil Yachty who are just so weird and like a lot of the statements they're saying you don't believe like whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's just like he's just a nerd, which is okay. It's perfectly fine, but like a lot of statements he's saying.
Nobody takes braggadocio seriously anymore except Jay-Z.
Yeah. And I think it's like a dead art, and I think this style of braggadocio that Jay-Z brings on this album should have died on Watch the Throne. It should have died on Watch the Throne, because Watch the Throne, one of like my least favorite hip hop albums besides the one song about Kanye and Jay-Z being in Paris. Other than that, the album, and then Otis. Otis is pretty.
Otis is really fun. I like that.
Other than those two tracks, the album is just boring, and it like embodies what I dislike about hip hop. It's just boring Kanye and boring Jay-Z, and no, let me state that boring Kanye and then even boringer Jay-Z, and like Kanye's not used to his full potential, Jay-Z's not used to his full potential. And I feel like together they're just kind of like this lame super team. It could have been better. I wish Jay-Z for his next album, I'm just going to say this now, we're not even done with the review yet. Jay-Z, you need to adapt. Because this right here, I'm gonna let it slide this last time.
It's not gonna fly.
This is stupid. Like, I feel like there's even moments on like the bonus tracks which I haven't listened to, like the Blue Freestyle, which I heard a glimpse of, that showed a little bit of character. It was a little bit of character. There's something to grasp, even though it was daughter freestyling, it was just like a skit or like an interlude. I think that would have been cool to have on the album. I don't know why you just only put that on the physical release. I don't understand the purpose of physical only tracks unless they're like bad tracks and you can make them like bonus tracks. I understand that.
Yeah.
But like maybe he just thinks his daughter's freestyle isn't nothing important. I don't know. But I feel like Jay-Z...
Let the twins rap.
That'd be cool. But yeah, Moonlight. It's again, it's kind of similar to Family Feud. Jay-Z's just kind of spitting some stuff, and nothing ever really sticks. On to that, Marcy Me. The last two tracks on this album, though, I'll give Jay-Z some credit. They're pretty good.
All right, yeah,
they're pretty good. I think the first three tracks and the last two tracks are pretty good. This album's weird because you get really good tracks and you get really bad filler tracks. And all over the place, Jay-Z's rapping. It's consistent. It's good, like his rapping ability, but it's just his songwriting is just terrible. His narrative building is bad. I want to say like world building in a sense. You don't really see a bigger picture in this album.
No.
At points, and I feel like that's something. It's like he's doing a lot of these songs in like one take, It feels like, because he's writing these lyrics down, and I feel like it's kind of like this album was rushed in a way. It gives me the sense, because all the narrative he tries to build just doesn't really work. But Marcy Me and Legacy, the last two tracks. Marcy Me is about kind of Jay-Z being on nostalgic, talking about I think it's like the Marcy Developmental Project, developmental housing or something like that.
Yeah.
Like low income housing, I think. He's being kind of like nostalgic about stuff, and I thought that was really cool. Little trip down memory lane. Jay-Z actually, I feel like his most genuine is on these last two tracks. Even though Legacy is a little bit braggadocio, but it's like the right amount. It's like the right amount, because on Legacy he's just talking about the future of the Carter name. And I feel like that's the right type of braggadocio that this album needs. It doesn't need Jay-Z just keep on talking about cars, about gold and stuff like that. I feel like Jay-Z, he kind of squanders his opportunities on this album. Like, going to it, Kill Jay-Z is a good track. Whether or not, like, Jay-Z's flow is good on pretty much all these tracks.
Yeah.
There's nothing to complain there. It's all about his narrative, his going way too braggadocio at times, and the fact that he doesn't go deep. Those are my main three problems with this track. And also he goes for like a reggae island vibe, which I think it clashes with other tracks. But one thing I appreciate about this album, I'll give him credit, there's only two producers on this album, Jay-Z and No ID. I think that's good.
I like that.
I hate when there's 900 producers. Just limit it to 2 or 3. It keeps it consistent. We're going to talk about Kendrick, and I think that's that one of the reasons the album's kind of clunky is because it has so many producers. But this album, it's a good album, but Jay-Z leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
There are some good moments. There are some really bad filler moments. Honestly, like, in conclusion, when I was thinking about a score for this album, I'm gonna give it a 7. A 7. But if Jay-Z doesn't prove himself on this next album, I'm gonna give it like a 2. Because Jay-Z, if you don't improve, why are you still making music? If you're not trying to like constantly improve, you're not even being a good human being if you don't constantly try to improve yourself. And on this album, he shows some aspects of trying to improve himself, but at points he's just being a dick. And it's hard to let that slide. Like on Kill Jay-Z, his diss about Kanye just pissed me off because Kanye was going through some shit.
Yeah. And
Jay-Z was just gone. And we don't know all the scenario, but Jay-Z doesn't give clarification to really anything on this album. It is a 7. It is a good album. Could be a great album if Jay-Z just figured out how to actually write a song properly. If he was able to actually coherently stick a narrative together instead of just talking about cars, then talking about his mom coming out of the closet, and then talking about filler, and then talking about title. It's just a mess in only songwriting. Like, production-wise, this album is fine. And it's pretty consistent besides Caught Their Eyes and besides Bam. But even those 2 tracks, the production isn't really terrible. Production-wise, this album's pretty good, especially in the story of OJ. But the only problem isn't from Jay-Z's flows, and he doesn't really say anything, I want to say super stupid. Like, there isn't a huge mistake here as there was on, like, a Lil Yachty album. Like, that one, you remember that one line? He said, like, should blow my dick like a cello.
Yeah.
There isn't, like, a stupid mistake like that on this album. The only stupid mistake is Jay-Z's just terrible at narrative. He just can't keep a cohesive thought together. And some fans may like that. Some fans may, like, think this album is the best album of the year. But I think this album really doesn't... It leaves a lot to be desired. And I think a 7 is an appropriate rating. And 7, but if you don't show improvement, Jay-Z, again, I'm going to give you like a negative 400 on this album. Because I can't listen to another album when you were literally just only talking about cars. Show some depth. you are literally emotionally deep as a kiddie pool. It's all surface level information. That's all I'm gonna say.
Good stuff.
What are you gonna give it?
I'm gonna give it a 6.5. I mean, like you said, like he needs to show improvement. He needs to do better than his old ways. He's not adapting to the current music scene well, and I think that if he doesn't, like if he continues to not adapt or not make any attempt to adapt, he's not going to survive very long, and he's not going to be considered one of the greats. He's going to be considered like a washed up has-been, you know? And I don't think he's... I mean, I definitely think there's talent to be had here, but he's just not adapting like he should be. As far as the narrative of the album goes, or like things that are discussed, I think a lot of people were like, this is going to be a response to Lemonade. And Lemonade talked only about the situation at hand. It only talked about the infidelities of Jay-Z and how Beyonce was dealing with it and how she needed to deal with it. I think that the couple is past that by now, yes. But also, I think that Beyonce just needed that closure and to make that album to like be able to fully get over it. I think that Jay-Z like just didn't respond well. I think that maybe he used that like as kind of a cash grab. I don't think that the situation was fake. I do think that he cheated. I don't know to what extent. But I think that Beyonce's album was more heartfelt and needed to be made, and Jay-Z was like, there's money to be had here. I did this, and I can act like I'm sorry, but honestly, the whole album is not the apology that it should be to a full album about his infidelity. A couple lines here and there are not going to cut it.
It's a shame that Jay-Z isn't able to even, like, hang with his wife. Because Lemonade...
There's definitely one that's better than the other.
Yeah. Which
Beyonce
is a shame.
Still going, still changing her style, still growing as a person and as a musician, but Jay-Z has stayed static throughout the years.
And it feels like this was just rushed. I get a vibe from that. It's a shame because No ID and Jay-Z's producing on this album is pretty solid.
I like the team up.
And it's a shame that, like, Jay-Z really can't use his features well because all the features on this album are kind of like poorly placed. I think Frank Ocean should be switched with Damian Marley. I feel like that would have been a better use of Damian Marley, and not even having Frank Ocean on the album probably would be best because I don't think Jay-Z could probably use him properly anymore.
Frank Ocean could have been doing another feature at this time, and who knows what it could have been. But like he wasted that talent, you know. I feel like Frank Ocean is he's almost like a golden truffle. And you have to use him like very precisely and to his fullest potential for it to be worth it. You can't just throw golden truffle on a hot dog. You gotta throw like golden truffle on like filet mignon, and then it'll be worth it. But this was like throwing a golden truffle on a hot dog.
Yeah, it's the same way with like Kendrick features. Like
you can't just squander them.
You can't just put Kendrick on like a Maroon 5 track. Like that doesn't make it good. You can't just put Kendrick on the Mask Off instrumental because that doesn't, because Future's boring and it makes half the song good.
Hey, now Mask Off was a good song.
We'll get into that debate another day, but yeah, Jay-Z, just you need to
step it up,
figure your ish out.
The end.
Go deep, go fucking deep. Because like I hate people who won't even explain.
I hate all these fake friends, man.
Yeah.
I hate fake people. In high school, you realize who your true friends are, and Jay-Z is not a true friend. He's fake.
Like, there's so many artists that are doing that have influences of Jay-Z that are doing Jay-Z better.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. Yeah, that's about it for
anyway.
No, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. That's about it for Bored.
Rip Bordy Bore.
I'm excited to see what everyone else has opinions on this album. I heard a lot of positive things about this album. Let's get into Kendrick Lamar's Damn. Kendrick Lamar's Damn. Bam. Yeah, I forgot.
The skateboarder.
Kendrick Lamar's Damn was released in April, and it's been praised as Kendrick Lamar's best album. According to Kendrick Lamar thinks it's his best album. Complex says Good Kid, Mad City is his best album. We think To Pimp a Butterfly is his best album because it is. That shouldn't even be a question.
Yeah.
Damn is Kendrick's worst studio album, I feel like, narrative-wise. I feel like it's a little bit better in Section 80, but narrative-wise, even Section 80, I think, was better.
To prefix this, though, it's not a bad album.
It's not... This album doesn't have really any bad songs. It has weaker moments, but there isn't a song on this album where I'm like, this song is terrible. I like all the tracks on this album. The main issue...
How they fit together.
Is how they're laid out. This album does this stupid thing of trying to take two songs that cover two topics that are like similarly related, hence blood, DNA, love, lust,
DNA, yeah.
like loyalty, pride. They take two topics that are that cover basically either similar or contrasting subjects that relate together and put them together. Usually these tracks are there's like one deep emotional one or like moodier one, and there's one like poppier or like angrier one.
Yeah.
And this layout that they do is stupid. It is completely stupid. It feels like I'm listening to this album in shuffle. It really does. Kendrick is way better at this. And I would expect Kendrick, who I think released the best album of 2015, which I think is a perfect album, To Pimp a Butterfly. I expect so much more out of him.
Especially the way it was laid out. That was one of the strongest suits of the album.
Is that everything builds on top of each other. And this album, everything like everything is mishmashed. Nothing fits. It's all kind of mess. It's just a mess. It's just a glob. They just took a bunch of songs and then just put them in this weird order, and it makes it feel like it's kind of almost rushed in a sense, or that they just didn't know. They didn't want to work on a narrative, or they wanted to get this album out faster. I have a potential theory on why this album's laid out the way it is, and I'll get into that at the end of the review. But this is Kendrick's weakest studio album, I feel like, but we'll get into it track by track. So, Blood, which sets up this narrative of Kendrick being shot by this woman. This is not covered for the rest of the album. I don't like this. With The Pimp a Butterfly, we got bits of narrative of the entire album. This album, we get bit of the narrative at the beginning, bit of the narrative at the end, and even then we don't really understand what's happening. I'm not saying these narratives can't be abstract. I'm saying they just need to be explored more thoroughly throughout the album. They could be weird. It could just be like weird noises, but if there's a theme, there needs to be something for me to grab onto, and this album doesn't really provide it, which makes it feel like there's no point to listening to the album the layout there is. There's no reason that you could have just listened to this album on shuffle and just make sure that you listen to Blood first and Duckworth last. It's just terrible layout. And Blood, great track though. I love how it potentially could set up a narrative, really doesn't, but it's a good track. It's a good little skit that opens up everything, and that works well with DNA. And I'm going first listen, I thought, oh, this is gonna be a great album. I don't know what everyone's been talking about. I feel like this album's probably gonna be Kendrick's best. And then DNA's this great track where Kendrick talks about kind of genetics in a sense, his DNA and how it relates to like black culture and like hatred and violence and stuff like that, which I thought was a really good track, really good, angry, energetic track. Kendrick seems passionate. And then we go into Ya, and Ya is a fine track, but it completely ruins the vibe that DNA and Blood set up. And the fact that Element is right after that, and Element fits so well with DNA, and they put Ya there, just makes it seem stupid. It's just stupid. I don't know why they lay it out like that. Ya is a fine track, but it doesn't really say anything that much. There's nothing really to it. It's kind of just, I want to say, there's nothing really there. I feel like Kendrick comes through with a really, really good hook. I love his singing. It reminds me a lot of Untitled and Mastered.
Ooh.
But he talks about police sirens and stuff like that, but other than that, there's nothing else really to it. It feels kind of just like a blow-off moment, which it really shouldn't because it is a good track overall. Kendrick has a really, really strong performance on it. And then after that, Element outshines Ya by just being a great track where Kendrick, it's one of the best moments on this album because Kendrick gives another really energetic performance that would have fit better with DNA, but Ya's in the way and it just ruins everything, ruins all the momentum. After Element, we get Feel. Feel describes a lot of the...
Feel is my favorite track on the album,
Which is Trevor's
honestly.
favorite track. My favorite is DNA. I love how energetic, passionate Kendrick is on DNA. But Feel is another great moment.
Very, yes.
I love how Kendrick Lamar is describing all of his emotions. I love how he just says, I feel. He just starts every line pretty much that way.
It's very creatively done. I think that all of his harmonies are in check. One of my favorite things about listening to Kendrick is his harmonies, essentially where it's double him over himself, and one his like bottom track is him rapping, and the top track is him almost singing whatever notes he wants to over it, or rapping just in a higher pitched tone, which creates this contrasting harmony that would sound nasty in any other context, but I think it really gives like a good feel of what he is talking about, and I think like Feel really shows that. I think Feel would have fit in really well on To Pimp a Butterfly. It easily could have been on Untitled Unmastered. I feel like a chip on my shoulder. I feel like I'm losing my focus.
Feel's the one that has the most Tim Butterfly-esque style. Which is not surprising because Soundwave produced the track with like 900 other people. One of the biggest problems about this album is that there's so many producers. There's so many. Like,
who's to blame? Nas's Illmatic.
To begin, you have... With Blood, you have Beckon, who's this artist that appears a couple times on the album. And then you have Top Dog. And after that, you have Mike Will Name It, which provides a lot of like better moments on this album, which I don't think I was going to like a Mike Will Made It song in 2017, but he did a really good job on this album for his
he
moments.
also did one with Lil Yachty and Carly Rae Jepsen that I enjoyed also, so Mike Will Made It is coming back.
And then you got Soundwave on a lot of this album. And then some moments you have Bad Bad Not Good, which I was really excited about. And you have Alchemist, which I was also really excited about. But this album has so many producers to it that there's so many different styles. And I feel like Mike Will Made It usually shows up on the more angrier or poppier tracks. But like I feel like Mike Will Made It style clashes with Soundwave style in a sense. I wish Kendrick did a better job of like putting everyone together. All the different styles together, but it's just not executed in a well way. But going to Feel's great track. After that, completely clashes with Loyalty. I like Loyalty. I think Rihanna has a strong performance. Kendrick has a strong performance. They're not really saying that much, but the performances are so good that it doesn't really matter. I love how they sample 24 Karat Magic. I think that is great. It's just a unique sample. And it's just weird placement. There's a lot of these poppier tracks on the album. Ya, I think, is one of the poppier moments. Loyalty, Humble, God, Love. All these moments should have been put together, and maybe that would have made them look stronger. Or maybe just taken off the album and put into like an EP or something. I think that would have done a better job. Because those tracks all work together really well, but they don't work together with Element, DNA, don't work together with Pride, Lust, Triple X. They don't fit whatsoever with those songs. So I think you would take them out. I think they're good tracks and they should be showcased either as like loose singles or as on their own EP, but like this album wasn't a good place for it. And after that, Pride. I love how Anna Wise is back with Kendrick. I love her vocals. I think that's nice. Pride's a nice track. I think Kendrick goes really, really deep on this track. I just love how he's just discussing all the aspects of his Pride. After that, we got Humble. Humble is the biggest storefront, I feel like. Because Kendrick has a lot to say about it. And it is a good... He's actually saying stuff on this track. It's one of the poppier tracks there. He's actually talking, and he actually has valid points. it just clashes, and it's just another one of the moments.
It definitely should have
And
been
we
a
could
single.
say that for like a lot of these other tracks. Like Love, it's a really good Drake track. It's not a Kendrick track. It sounds like a Drake track.
Mm-hmm.
It's an alright track. I like it. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. I feel like Kendrick wasn't really using himself to his full potential. I think Kendrick tried to be more poppier in a couple of these songs. Just maybe to get a radio attention, maybe just get attention in general, or maybe just to show off to Drake in a sense, saying he can do Drake better than Drake can do Drake, which was expected that Kendrick could do Drake better than Drake can. I don't know if that maybe was his goal on this project, but it kind of seems like it. But other than that, we can like Fear's a really good moment. I love how Alchemist is on it. His production's really well. I love how there's like it builds a narrative of fear of like the father and kind of like the black community. I feel like how the father's supposed to be really well respected, or at least how Kendrick perceived his father. Like how his father kind of demanded respect out of him. I think that was really nice, and I think that track does a really, really good job of describing fear in general. And the beat to it kind of sounds like a Kendrick track or like a track I've heard before. I think it's just the sample that the Alchemist uses, but it sounds. I felt like I heard that instrumental before, but I think the instrumental matches well with Kendrick, so I can't really complain. Triple X is a surprising moment because when I saw U2 on the feature, I was immediately thinking it was going to be garbage, but it's actually really well done. Kendrick talks about a bunch of X-rated topics, and he does it really, really well. He talks about gun violence in a little skit. I thought that was really, really well done. And then to kind of close off this album, Lust was a good moment. I love Bad, Bad, Not Good. I love how Kendrick's talking about lust. We've covered a lot of this before, I think. I just want to cover two last things. God, it's a really poppy track that I feel like it has some depth to it for a popular track because it's Kendrick. Basically, he feels like a god because he just can't mess up, but he did mess up on this album. There are mistakes. It's like a good example of braggadocio because it's kind of like it brings in a little bit of fear too, which is kind of nice. I think Kendrick covers the topic of being a god pretty well. I love his vocals on it. He seems really impassioned. It's just goofy. It's really goofy too, but I really enjoy it. I think Soundwave does a good job producing, along with like the 900 other producers on the track. And one thing I forgot to mention, Kid Capri on this album, he's hilarious.
He's really funny.
I don't know if that was supposed to be a parody, but it seemed like it. It totally seemed like rip at like a bunch of these SoundCloud mixtapes where like producers are just screaming like Young Metro. I feel like it's kind of like a dip at Young Metro too. Like any producer that puts their kind of like staple at the front or like talks like DJ Khaled too.
DJ Khaled, DJ Mustard.
Yeah.
Young Metro. Yeah.
Which I think it brought some unity to this like scattered album, but it didn't do enough unity where maybe it would have been nice to put them in an order that you had to listen this way, but it just didn't do a good job of that.
Yeah.
Duckworth finally. Duckworth tells a really, really nice story about how Top Dog was going to rob a KFC that Kendrick's dad worked at, and I thought it was a really unique story, and I think Kendrick told it really well. And it was a nice closer to the album. I love how the track rewinds to the beginning track, and
it reminds me a lot of The Roots' Undone, where they tell the story of that guy Redford Stevens that was like killed, and he lives like in urban poverty, and it's told in reverse chronological order. So like the album begins with him getting shot, and he like goes through the rest of the album of him basically reversing in his life. And that's what Damn reminds me of a lot. Is like just that opening line. But I'm glad they like revisited it at the end to bring like some of it kind of full circle, you know. Not very well, of course, because the actual circle part isn't really like cohesive, but it's still like attempted to bridge a gap. I feel like Kendrick knew what he wanted to do on this album and had an idea of where he wanted to go. It just wasn't picked up by listeners well enough.
I feel like if he had another year with this album, it would have been better. Like, it would have been like a great album. It
Yeah.
would have been like a 9 or a 10. Because I feel like I wasn't expecting a Kendrick album this year.
No, I wasn't either.
But like everyone else was, which I didn't understand. Because he just dropped Untitled Unmastered, which was a demo. It wasn't new material. But
Well, yeah, it was. Some of it, well, most of it was.
no, it wasn't like...
It wasn't covering new subject matter, I guess.
No, it wasn't like new recorded stuff. It was all stuff he just had in an archive. He didn't like record anything. He just put it all together. It was all demos. And I wasn't expecting, since he dropped that last year, I wasn't expecting another Kendrick album probably for like another year or two. Because To Pimp a Butterfly took a decent amount of time.
A long time, yeah.
And I just wanted them to come together with like a good album that was well thought out. And I look a lot up to Kendrick because he's able to build up this narrative throughout his albums. And on this album, he really isn't able to. He just covers a bunch of subjects, which he does well, but at times it's just like I'm listening to it on shuffle, and there's no really purpose to the album. And there are some weaker moments. I think like Love and probably Loyalty are probably the weakest moments on this album. I didn't really care for Loyalty at first, and I really cared for Love at first, but those tracks have kind of grown on me. In conclusion, I think that this album felt like it felt like it was rushed, like narrative wise, but all the tracks are like perfect.
Yeah.
And like all the good tracks are almost perfect. I wish this album is 15 minutes. I feel like you could have cut out Loyalty and Love, and maybe Humble, and just edited everything together, and it would have felt like a great album. That maybe been a little bit shorter, but
They still need some loose singles, though, I definitely think.
I felt like Humble would have been the perfect loose single, or did what he did on To Butterfly and just like retaped it and made it felt the atmosphere more.
Yeah.
At least did something. It's not just the same song over again. But Kendrick, he's able to produce good music. But on this album, he just isn't able to produce good narrative. He isn't able to produce a cohesive project. These songs contrast from each other. They don't work with each other. They're like loose puzzle pieces, and none of them fit.
Yeah.
The structure's bad. I think this album could have used another year, or it could have cut out some stuff. I think this album's good. This is a good album still. The music on it, all the songs are fine. It's just the layout and the narrative that are the main two problems. I'm feeling an 8.2. I think that's a good score. I think Kendrick did maybe rush this a little bit, but it's still a good album. Kendrick did do a good job with it. I wasn't as mad as I was at first. I was pretty mad at first about this album.
Oh, I know.
But I've kind of grown to appreciate it. I think it's a valid score. It is not his best album. Anyone say this is over To Butterfly, you need to figure this out, because there's no way that To Butterfly is like worse than Damn. Damn is just all over the place. To Butterfly, everything builds on top of each other, and it still has a lot of producers, but everything comes together in a unique way.
It works more cohesively as an album.
Yeah.
I think Damn's main problem is calling it an album. Calling it a studio album was probably like the main downfall, if the only downfall. Because if Loyalty and Love are the weakest tracks on this album, then that's pretty good. Like I said, like I think the only thing is calling it an album, because calling it an album implies that there is a deeper meaning, implies that there's like a deeper connection between all the tracks. You look at 444 and you know what it was supposed to be. Might not have come out that way, but you know what it was supposed to be. You look at Lemonade, you know what it was supposed to be. To Pimp a Butterfly, you know what it was, you know. But Damn didn't really have any sort of direction that it was going in. It was just a bunch of other topics that he wanted to cover. I think maybe I always hear the 2-album theory. I don't specifically want to go into it yet, if at all, because everybody always talks about it anyway. But I also think like perhaps this album was broken into 2 separate parts, but instead of having two, like a half, like an Act 1 and an Act 2, and almost like it flipped between Act 1, Act 2, Act 1, Act 2 tracks. I think that may be what he was supposed to be going for. how well or not it was executed is really up to the listener. Because, like, in your mind, I know you, like, hated it to begin with. You hated how, like, incohesive it was. You just were, like, mad about it altogether. But, like, I think as you've listened to it more and as I've listened to it more, I've come to realize I think, like, that's what he was going for.
Which, if it is, that's stupid. Because why would you put two tracks that are contrastly different next to each other? Unless I really...
mean, maybe it was just to go for, like, a different sound. I don't know. I can't speak for, like, Kendrick, but I think that may be what he was supposed to be going for. I'm not saying it worked well. I'm not saying it was executed to its best potential. I'm just saying I think that he didn't just say, like, these are good all together. Let's just throw them in a pot, and however they, like, come out, it comes out, you know?
Well, I'm not saying he did that, but I'm saying it seems like he did that. Like, it seems like it's on shuffle, not that Kendrick just put it on shuffle or anything like that.
I'll probably give the album an 8.5. Because, like, really, musically, I enjoyed all the tracks. There's no reason why I wouldn't enjoy Damn. Because I like all the tracks, you know? Even Ya. Like I said, like, the main downfall is that it was just called an album. If I like all the tracks on an album, I'm going to give it a higher score. But if it can take me away to a different place and give me that sort of cohesive narrative that I think an album should have, then I give it a higher score. Hence, Weezer's White Album, I like almost all the tracks, but it, like, takes me away to that beachy vibe. It takes me away to the California coast. And so I gave it a higher score. I gave it like a 9 or 9.5 or something like that. Because it not only did it have good music, but it had good enough atmosphere and good enough, like, world building almost that it took me away. But Damn doesn't really take me anywhere. I like all the music, but it doesn't take me anywhere.
Okay, I think that's it for Damn. Besides one thing, I'm just gonna cover real quick my little 2-album theory. What my theory is, and I kind of believe it. I don't believe any of the theories I have, but I believe that at one point there was 2 albums. I think my reasoning behind this...
I think that Damn ate its twin in the womb.
Because there's a blue background behind Kendrick and his Spotify and the Google Play Music, like, artist photo, I feel like at one point maybe there was 2 albums and he just had the album art for it already. Like, he could have shot that, like, last year sometime. We don't know. But at one point there was 2 albums and he didn't think, like, the 2 albums could be justified on their own. So, or maybe they're like 2 EPs. They could have been 2 EPs, 2 albums, whatever. Or like 1 album with 2 sides, as you said, 2 parts that were drastically different. I feel like there wasn't enough to justify each side of the album, so he just combined the best parts of each album. That's my theory. I don't think it's true, but
it could be.
It could be. It could be true.
Given the styles of the different tracks and the way that they contrast like that, it easily could have been.
Tracks like Ya, Loyalty, God, Love were tracks that I was expecting from this album from the get-go, because Kendrick, he said he was going to give us a different style, and Ya's the epitome of that. I thought Ya was going to be what the album sounded like, and the album sounded like Ya all the way through. I think this would have been a better project. I thought this was going to be a more, like, singing album, which I thought would have been cool, because
I like his singing.
Kendrick has unique vocals, and I thought it would have been cool for him to, like, try him out. But he sung a lot more on this album than he did on, like, Timber Fly or Untitled and Mastered. So there could have been 2 albums. There could have been 2 EPs. It could have been a double album. Could have been really anything.
Yeah.
But that's my little theory about it. We're gonna cover some Tyler Creator tracks real fast, and I think that'll be it for this episode. So Tyler Creator, he released a couple tracks. He released 2 tracks about a couple weeks ago, and then released 1 track earlier this week. The 2 tracks from earlier were Who That Boy, which features A$AP Rocky, and then 911
Mr. Lonely
features Frank Ocean, Steve Lacy, and Anna of the North. And then the 1 track he released earlier this week, Boredom, features Anna of the North. It also features guitar from Austin Feinstein? Feinstein? I don't know. Austin Feinstein's been on a Tyler Creator track before. He was on Cherry Bomb, and he was also on Blonde. I think it was Self Control. It also had Young Lean on that track, so it was a weird track. These 3 new tracks, I'm really excited about them because I think Tyler's going in the right direction for once. one, the mixing actually is good. Unlike Cherry Bomb, where you can't understand what the fuck Tyler's saying half the time because the mixing is done so poorly. It felt like it was rushed. That's a positive. I'm so happy that the mixing is going to be good on these tracks. And I hope the rest of the album isn't mixed terribly. 2, it seems like Tyler has honed his skill a little bit. And he's actually rhyming about stuff that like is actually important. And it isn't all over the place. It isn't scatterbrain. And he is showing a lot of more depth and a lot more character of the tracks I liked off Wolf, the tracks I liked off Cherry Bomb. And he's showing a lot of emotion that I really, really enjoy. Also on these tracks, I love the features. We do get to see Frank Ocean again, which is someone he's worked with before, and we do see Austin Fonstein.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see Anna of the North. It's nice to see Steve Lacy. It's nice to see A$AP Rocky, who are these two guys are like best friends, and they haven't really worked together before. They worked on Telephone Calls, but that was the only track they really worked on together before. And I think it's nice that they finally are like collabing together in like a proper way that isn't just like an A$AP Mob track. And I think their collaboration, Who That Boy, which I listened to first from the YouTube edit, which I don't advise you to do first because the YouTube edit has some mixing issues. It just doesn't sound as good as the music video edit as it does the just like the single. Single sounds a lot more better mixing wise. But I think all these tracks are good. They all kind of cover like the same like subject of like loneliness. 911 and Boredom more than like Who That Boy, but they all seem to cover the same subject, which is nice. They all seem consistent. Like I could definitely see all these 3 songs like fitting together on an album, which is nice.
Yeah.
Which I usually don't get from a Tyler Creator album because it's usually scatterbrain.
I'm not a fan of Tyler the Creator, as I've talked about numerous times before. I don't like his music. I don't particularly like his voice, his mixing, his just really anything in general about Tyler the Creator I don't like. I can at least say that I respect him as an artist, and I can respect him like as a rapper, because I think that he brings something to the table that a lot of artists like don't. He knows he's goofy. He knows he's absolutely ridiculous, and he has fans that are based off of that, you know. I went into the first 2 singles kind of with an open mind, you know, like I used to not really like Childish Gambino either, but now I can definitely like state him as one of my biggest like life influences, not only because of his rapping ability and musical talent, but because of his versatility around the world of entertainment and making TV shows and in the writing world, in the music world. I think that he like makes a lot of strides that a lot of people are too afraid to make. So I went into the singles with an open mind, and I'll outright say I did not like Who Dat Boy.
I kind of expected you not to like that
It's
track.
just, I don't know, I just didn't like it.
I don't like the music video to Who That Boy. I think it's kind of Tyler the Creator's weakest music video, Tyler the Creator usually has pretty good music videos. This one was pretty weak.
Yeah.
Some of the editing was kind of poor on it. He really doesn't. It's not really interesting.
No,
it has a really really cool topic. Like it has a really cool like narrative where Tyler the Creator blows off his face, and he has this white face on.
And they sew him on a new one.
Yeah, but he's like done white face before, so it's not really like something new or energetic. I like how there's this Leo impersonator, which is really weird, and I don't see how it fits into anything besides the song because he says 95 Leo, But
yeah, I don't know. And then I went to 911 Mr. Lonely, and I actually liked it a little more. I was like, this is kind of cool. Like, I like when artists that don't usually sing kind of experiment with singing, whether they're good or bad, because I think, like, being a singer myself, I think singing takes a lot of confidence to get up there and do. It's just you and your voice, you know? And so, like, even if you're bad at singing, if you make some sort of attempt, I can at least applaud you. I think Tyler the Creator singing, while it wasn't the best singing I've ever heard, honestly, I don't think that he has any sort of, like, knowledge of harmony, because it never sounded right. It almost sounded like he was singing in a different key than his instrumentals. But whatever, he tried.
But like I have to say to that, he's only singing really on the first 30 seconds of the track, and like it is kind of like it's goofy. Like he knows it's goofy. He's sung on his track.
But I mean, like at least when you're singing Goofy, you know how to match the key, you know how to match the instrumentals, but he was just in a completely different world singing. It was very strange. And not the way that Kendrick's harmonies are like dissonant on purpose. He was just like, I have no idea how to match pitch.
He's not on like the Kendrick spectrum. He's on like the Jeff Rosenstock Little Yachty spectrum.
Yeah,
where it's just
he
really
tries.
It's really passionate,
but he's not that great. Anyway, I like that track more than others. But when I listened to Boredom, I actually really, really enjoyed Boredom. I really like that track. It really shows sides of like Frank Ocean. I easily think that you could have switched out Frank Ocean. It would have been like a very passionate track. It would have fit in well on Channel Orange, in my opinion.
Would have felt better on Blonde, I feel like.
I felt it gave me a very Super Rich Kids vibe rather than a Blonde vibe, you know. But either way, I think that you easily could have switched out Tyler for Frank, and it would have sounded better. But like, I really like both of them doing the track. I just like the track in general. I think Tyler does a really good job of it, and I feel like if he keeps going in this musical direction, I might like the album more than I'm already expecting myself to like it. Because honestly, I don't see myself liking it that much. But I do see that it has a lot of like interesting features on it, such as Frank, such as Anna of the North, such as Estelle. I like those artists, and I think that them working together is good, and I think that if they keep going in a way like Boredom instead of Who Dat Boy, I'm gonna like the album more than if you went in his Cherry Bomb way or his Wolf direction.
I think this feature wise, what I'm like looking at from his forthcoming album, which is called Scumfuck Flower Boy, which is a great title. I love it. Looking at the features, I actually prefer the features that he had on Cherry Bomb a little bit better, but you couldn't hear anything on Cherry Bomb,
so it didn't really matter.
Like Kanye's on it, like Lil Wayne's on it, Schoolboy Q, like
Pharrell's on the new one anyway.
Yeah. I don't think there's not
Kaliushis.
No. I just have flashbacks to Gorillaz.
Whoa, was that Hans Zimmer?
Yeah. The big one. It's a shame Hans Zimmer's not on this album. That was weird. That was like the worst. That was the worst album for Hans Zimmer to be a part of. And he literally picked that one. But what I like about Who Dat Boy, I love how A$AP Rocky and Tyler have this kind of like built in. They feel like really, really. They're able to flow well together.
They're best friends, so they work well together anyway.
Yeah.
You have that sort of camaraderie that you're not going to get with two normal artists. I think that's part of the reason why, and I hate to go back to the conversation, but I think that's part of the way that, like, Watch the Throne was so hyped. It's Kanye and Jay-Z. You know they already had that camaraderie. While it didn't turn out that well, you still know that they were friends being friends on the album. And I think the same way with Tyler and A$AP Rocky. They're friends being friends. They already have that, like, built-in camaraderie.
And then for 911/Mr. Lonely, I think what's great about it, one, it uses that instrumental that he used for the fashion show.
Yeah, it did.
I really enjoy that instrumental. I've been listening to that for the last couple months because it was leaked online onto YouTube. And I love that instrumental. I'm glad he
finally used it.
I hope he uses a little bit of his verses from the song he performed at the fashion show, My Ego. I hope he like talks about it on this album. How he's like talked on before in like loose singles, like how he's banned from like Britain, but that was like after Cherry Bomb. So I hope he little bit discusses it a little bit, how he was banned from Europe, how he was banned from Australia, stuff like that. 911/Mr. Lonely. I think all the features on it like complement each other well. I think Frank and Tyler work together. Frank and Tyler are the only two members of Odd Future that complement each other really, really well. Except for Frank and Earl, we didn't really get to see much of them collab, but they on Super Rich Kids they complement each other well. But
yeah,
Frank and Tyler were pretty much the only two members of Odd Future that worked well together, blended well together. And I'm glad that Frank Ocean's on 2 tracks on this album. He really wasn't on Cherry Bomb. I'm glad that he's on this album. I think End of the North on both Boredom and 911/Mr. Lonely has a great additional vocals. I love her vocals. It seems really... It complements Tyler really, really well. And on Mr. Lonely and Boredom, I love how Tyler is getting personal. He is joking and stuff like that.
It's a side of him that's not really shown that often.
It is more deep, and I think that's kind of what Tyler albums really needed. He needed to go deeper, which is the same thing Jay-Z needed to do, but
didn't.
But it's I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think Tyler really did it well on these tracks, and especially on Boredom. I think Boredom's probably the best out of the 3. I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's either Boredom or 911/Mr. Lonely.
It's Boredom.
And I'm really excited for this album. Looking over it right now, the only other features were kind of like I don't know what to expect. We're gonna hear we're gonna hear Pharrell Williams at some point. We're gonna hear Kalyushas.
What if it's just a happy instrumental like that they sample?
We're gonna hear Lil Wayne, which I'm really excited about, and we're gonna hear Stell, and Stell's good.
I like Estelle.
I love Stell.
Yep.
And yeah, one more thing I want to cover. There's been rumors lately that on Tyler's new album he's coming out. I don't know if it's true, because Tyler has said some stuff before. Like I remember on I think Damo 23 I think it was like Complex said I had said like some homophobic things, so I got a photographer and like I kissed Lucas or something like that. It was I forget. That's not the lyric at all.
Oh yeah, I like that one.
But it's like something like that.
No, yeah, there's been like hints. How true they are or not is really up to how serious or not you take Tyler the Creator, because you don't know what he means and what he doesn't. He's
just goofy.
He's too goofy.
It's like
you can't take anything seriously that he says.
He's like me in like a Snapchat group chat. Like I just post memes.
So stupid.
I just post memes, and you don't know if I'm like you're asking me to hang out, and I just post memes. You don't know if I'm telling the truth or not because I'm just posting memes. I'm just in it for the meme. But if Tyler is coming out, good for him.
I don't think it matters to him almost. I think he's going to keep people guessing for as long as he can. And then like at some point it'll just kind of like come out if it's true, and it's not going to matter. The same way like Frank had his Tumblr letter. He didn't come out in a song. It was just a thing that he did. But I think like Tyler the Creator's personality is just going to be like, you know, he's going to keep people guessing as long as he can just because he's a troll. That's what he does.
He's in it for the meme.
He's in it for the meme.
I think that's going to be it for this episode of Anthony Todd Show. Episode 5. Damn. I didn't know I was listening to this album.
On Buffle. Bam.
Next week, we're actually going to be reviewing Brockhampton and Karen J. Callahan. We're going to do that this week, but then we're trying to collab with our friend Stacy, but Stacy was busy. So
what a loser.
We already had this episode planned, so we're going to do that. So we're going to do Karen J. Callahan, Bravado, Brockhampton, Saturation, which is, I'm glad we kind of waited on that because there's new information out that kind of clarifies some moments on the album with the knowledge of Saturation 2 being announced.
Saturation 3. I love that one.
Baturation. So that's next week. And until next time, guys, make sure you like our Facebook page, subscribe to us on YouTube, Podbean, Google Play Music, and iTunes. Yeah, that's right. We're on streaming services. Woo! You can lick my balls. And if you want to submit a question for next week's episode, there's a link in the description. I don't think anyone will ever put a question in the thingy. I don't think anyone's going to ever send us a question. And if you like our theme songs, produced by our friend DJ Quest, our intro song is called No Sleep, and our outro song is called Reply. He's also very busy, so make sure
he's our big friend.
He's our big friend. Make sure you're on SoundCloud, which is supposedly supposed to close in 50 days because they're running out of money.
Oh,
make sure you go on SoundCloud. Be like, I want to support you because you're Trevor and Vinny's big friend, who's apparently really busy. And this has been episode 5 of the Anthony Todd Show. Until next time, guys, I'm Voncent.
I'm Bever.
And
Bay out of Brubble.
And B.U. Bextime.
B.U. Bexbime.
Bout.
Be bout.
Beast.